All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Dave and Nick are doing our 2022 preview and prediction for the Florida Gators. Looking at head coach Billy Napier, he comes in after a 40-12 stint at Louisiana. He was one of those guys that stuck around and waited for the right opportunity. Dan Mullen gets tossed. He takes this Florida Gators job. Do you think that firing Dan Mullen was the right decision? Do you think Napier was the right hire? Because early on last year, when there were rumblings of Mullen being on the hot seat, I wasn't a fan of it. I know the recruiting wasn't great, and some of the things he was saying were his firing, but they played Alabama twice, very close. He even beat Georgia. Do you think that the firing was premature, or were you fine with what happened in Gainesville?
I certainly think it is a bit unfair to fire a coach who wins the East just the year before, considering how strong Georgia is to win the East with Florida. You know, they have to beat them in Jacksonville every year if they want to win the East. That the East runs through Jacksonville. And I think that when you play Alabama as close as it is, especially in a SEC title game, they really gave Alabama a nice fight last year. That was one of the only teams that gave Alabama a really close game in that national championship season. And then when you give Alabama a scare in the swamp as well, I think that definitely should buy you some time. But it seemed like Mullen really lost the locker room, seemed like they didn't care. He didn't really handle the Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones sort of saga very well. And then he gets tossed, and they bring in Billy Napier, who I think is a really good hire, considering Dan Mullen's now apparently is an assistant coach at a high school and might not even be a paid position. Very interesting fall from him. But I think Napier, like you said, at Louisiana, 40-12, they built a strong program there. They really know how to win, constantly playing very, very strong football. I think this is a good fit for him. He is apparently very good at recruiting, going to set up nice recruiting ties in Florida so they can start winning Florida again. They were losing the state of Florida to other schools in the SEC. This gives them opportunity to start recruiting well on their own turf and pick up some good roster players.
Yeah, I think Mullen took that job because he lives in the area. I think it's really just a passion thing. Could be wrong, but that's what I was cued in on. So that's the saga behind that. Looking at the rest of the staff, though, Rob Stone is the offensive coordinator. He was with the Giants in 2021. It looks like they're going to rock with co-defensive coordinators Sean Spencer and Patrick Toney. They also added DB coach Corey Raymond. He spent like a decade at LSU. That's a big-time addition for them, because everyone knows how many defensive backs LSU's put in. Same with Florida, so this is only going to make their DB group even stronger. And then Emory Jones, he transfers out to Arizona State, leaving Anthony Richardson here as the lone starter. They did acquire Jack Miller from Ohio State, but Richardson, I think, is the runaway here. An elite skill set. The running skills are just top-notch. 51 carries for 400-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, nearly 8 yards per carry. 6'4", 236, that Cam Newton-like frame. I think he could certainly be a power runner added onto that speed. Also about Richardson, impressive arm strength, makes plays quickly. Not exactly a pocket passer, but he has shown the ability to be patient and find an open man. One of his biggest weaknesses, though, struggled to take care of the ball at times. Threw with the double coverage late against LSU. Well, they were looking to tie that game up late. It should have been a 3-0 game at the half against the Bulldogs, and then he had 3 straight turnovers, 24-0 in a matter of minutes. How do you feel about Anthony Richardson?
There were a lot of calls last year for Anthony Richardson to be playing over Emory Jones. I love the way he runs. I think he has an impressive arm, like you said. I think he is the key to this offense. I think he has a serious potential here. He can really build around this team, and I love the running capability. You saw it against Alabama. You saw it against Georgia. You saw it in a couple different games last year. He's a powerful runner. He can really make up some plays on the ground. He can pick up a lot of ground game, and he's very versatile in the offense. He kind of can do anything he really wants to do. I think he's the perfect fit at quarterback. I think he's the go-to guy here. They got to run the offense through him, kind of design around him. I think they'll have success.
Yeah, looking at the second part of this offense, I think it's probably going to be quite balanced this year. They were 23rd in FBS last year, 208-plus yards per game. I think this backfield stays loaded. They do lose a couple of guys. Tail end of the rotation features former high-ranked recruits like Lorenzo Ligar, Marcus Bowman. Didn't really do much positive in the spring game, but those are talents. They're certainly there if they need them. Sunbelt Freshman of the Year transfers over Montrell Johnson. I think this is one of the positives of the transfer portal. Napier leaves. Well, so does his top running back from a season ago. They're both eligible this season to contribute to this team. 838 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. He had a 99-yard run in one of the games. Very impressive speed. Very good at finding the hole. I think Nyquan Wright consistently had 7 or 8 carries a game, only 76 total carries on the year. But he was used up. 504 total yards on 90 plays. I was a big fan of this running game last year. They gave Alabama nightmares in that close game in the swamp that you mentioned earlier. This is a really impressive part of their football team, and I think it's going to stay the same this year. How do you feel about this backfield?
I love the running game. Like you said, I think Johnson will be a really strong player. He comes in with Napier. Like you said, I think they'll use him as well. I like the two-headed monster they have. They gave Alabama some trouble. I think they can really make some moves on the ground, especially against some teams that are weaker in defense. I'm looking at, they play Missouri. Missouri's not the best against the run defense. They can really use that to their advantage. I think there's a very strong running back duo. And when you add in Anthony Richardson, who can also run, you basically have three running backs there with that combination. That could be a lot of added versatility, a lot of wild card in the offense, and make play calling very interesting.
What's interesting about Missouri is, their run defense was terrible last year. They actually held Florida to under 100 yards. There was only two teams that did that. Missouri did it. So that's another reason why the Dan Mullen tenure just wasn't going that well. Can't even run against that defense. Another reason, though, I'm very optimistic about this running game is the offensive line. They were really solid last year. Didn't allow many sacks. Product of two running quarterbacks, of course, but the yards per game number also proves that they were very good. 170 yards per game in the SEC. Still a great number. They had 160 on Georgia. It's kind of a blowout game. Georgia's team, even in garbage time, does not allow a lot of running yards, so that's certainly encouraging. And again, they tore Alabama apart. They had Osiris Torrance, though, another one of those Louisiana Lafayette stars. He's probably the top guard in college football. I like his short area quickness, the leg drive, great athleticism for 6'5", 335. The quicker SEC defenders, though, might give him some issues here on the interior, so it's certainly going to be interesting to see how he can handle this upgrade competition. Overall, they return three starters. They get one at left tackle, left guard, and at center, and they get this long-term starter in Torrance here. The offensive line has really good size. It's a really good unit. I think right tackle is the only real question mark, but Ethan White coming back, Richard Gorgie coming back at tackle. I'm a big fan of this offensive line.
There's a lot to like with this offensive line. Like you said, they bring in Torrance from Louisiana Lafayette. I think he'll be a good addition. Right tackle is the only real question mark, but otherwise it's a strong offensive line. And they should really help protect the running game, which is going to help out Johnson, Richardson, and the rest of the running game, because they're just going to have a ton of opportunities with the holes that the offensive line is going to create. This team can be ground and pound a lot this year, and considering we don't really know what to expect out of the wide receiving core, this team is going to rely on the run game, and the offensive line is certainly going to help with that.
Yeah, like you said, the receiving group is kind of the biggest area of concern on this offense. There's not a lot of outside speed that showcased that in the spring game as well. Impressive depth they had from a few years back is now pretty much cycled out. Joey Copeland transfers out to Maryland. Justin Shorter, the former 5-star. Last year, I said so many times during my Alabama preview, the lead up to that game, that he needed to be used against those smaller DBs. Because, he's 6'5", 228, and he had a whole 0 catches. They did not look to get him on the field one bit. I don't know the story behind that, but there was times where he was not used when he probably should have been. He still had 41 grabs for 550 yards. That was second on the team. Very strong hands. He can win on the inside, catching traffic, and of course that size allows him to win outside. Xavier Henderson, he wasn't as impactful as many expected, used pretty sparingly. Nice catch radius though, good route runner. I like what they got in those two, but it seems like after that you don't really know who's going to step up. Maybe Dejon Reynolds, another route runner, contested catch guy. A lot of the guys in this receiving core though around the 6'2", 210 type stature, so they got a little bit of size. How do you feel about this group that really is pretty concerning? They also picked up Ricky Pearsall here recently from Arizona State.
I was disappointed with Henderson, like you said. I really don't know. He didn't really quite live up to that expectation. I think some other guys, Justin Shorter, interested to see how he plays this year. This wide receiving core is just not that great, which is why I think that their running game is really going to be what runs for this offense. They're going to really need to see some benefit out of that, because in general, the pass catchers just leave a lot to be desired. So I think they're going to stick to the ground game this year. Maybe some of these guys get some catches. I'd like to see what Henderson can do, because he really disappointed last year, like you said. Maybe he takes a step up this year, but in general, the offensive wide receiving core is just not quite where it needs to be, and I'm a little disappointed in it.
Yeah, I'm not. You said they do have a good bit of experience. Their first three starters, Trent Whittemore, he should be the other one. Fired because he waited to fire Todd Grantham. It was way too late when he got axed. This defense, especially against Samford, that's all you needed to know. They gave up 500-plus yards, 50 against Samford. It just was brutal. This defense last year was not as good as it should have been. The Gators have long been known as a team that plays great defense. They're now going to go to a 3-3-5 look. And they have nose tackle Gervin Dexter, a great interior pass rusher with length. Last year, he was a heck of an impressive player last year. He's really going to – I think the scheme really fits him well. They also have Desmond Watson up there on the interior, 6'5", 415 pounds. That's pretty ridiculous. They replaced vets up front, not many proven commodities. How do you feel about this defensive line?
I think Dexter benefits greatly from shifting to the 3-3-5. I think that's going to really help him a lot. I think Brenton Cox as well, solid player, 14.5 tackles for loss. I think the defense will be better this year. I think a lot of it does come down to coaching. Like you said, Todd Grantham was a terrible defensive coordinator. He needed to be fired a long time ago. He was kept around way too long, giving up that many yards per game to Sanford. It's just ridiculous. When you're at Florida, you shouldn't be giving up 500 yards to a team like that ever in any situation. So I think the defense has some serious opportunity to step up this year. I think I like the new scheme they're playing under. I think that will fit well. They have a real potential here to lower that points per game, lower that yard per game as well. The standout is solid. There's some solid standouts in the secondary. I like to see what they can do. Jason Marshall, solid player. Trey Dean, I like what he can do. So in general, I think this is a solid defense. I think they should take a step up this year because coaching will definitely benefit from that. It'll be interesting to see what they can do.
Yeah, Brent Cox, 8.5 sacks, very good speed rusher, nice second effort. I like what he brings to the table, the former Bulldog. Ventrell Miller coming back at linebacker, sideline playmaker. Only played 2 games last season. They really missed him. And Amari Burney, he's a veteran who's back. Mohamed Diabachi, he transfers out to Utah, who they play in week 1. The run defense, it wasn't all that great. The pass defense I thought was much better. The only 300-plus yard game they had allowed was that 400-plus yard game to Samford. So the secondary was very solid throughout the year. Second in the conference, and opponent completion rate 57.2%. UGA was a full point better in that category. Teams also didn't throw that much on them due to the poor run defense. I thought they covered underneath quite well. Downfield, they weren't as pretty as evident in that Samford game. Speaking of the secondary, Corey Raymond, like we just mentioned, comes back. Well, arrived in Gainesville, been in LSU since 2012. Jason Marshall, like you said, struggled early, but he excelled in press. Didn't record a single penalty, apparently, after week 3. That's the number I saw. Not sure how accurate that is. I think it came from PFF, though, so I'd rely on that. He's going to replace Kiara Elam-Hafiz with a similar skill set. Jalen Kimber, a UGA transfer, he's been in the back. And now Avery Helm. He's a heck of an athlete. This is a guy I'm really excited to see. 6'1", 174, 40-inch vertical. He apparently runs a 4.3 as well. So plenty of talent in this secondary. I'm expecting big things out of the secondary, not just because of Jason Marshall, but I like Trey Dean, 91 tackles, one of the hardest hitting DBs in the game. He also had some great range with 9 pass breakups. Overall, what's your final thoughts on this defense? Talk about a little bit about the linebacking core, because I know I skipped over them for a second. What are your thoughts on them? Because Ventrell Miller coming back is a big-time addition.
Yeah, I think, like you said, look at Ventrell Miller. I think he has a real opportunity here. I think he's a strong veteran. I think they have some great opportunity. And I think Trey Dean is really the big wild card here. Like you said, love the way he can hit. Really strong player. I think you expect a lot out of him this year. In general, I think this defense will be good. I agree with you in that department. I think they'll take a step up for sure this year. The 26.8 points per game, I think they can lower that a little bit. They're a strong defense. They have a lot of guys coming back. They have a lot of veteran experience. I think this is going to be a decent team on defense, and that could really help out if the offense starts to struggle.
Looking at our schedule preview and prediction, I really think this is a better team than people think. It's just a tough draw early in the year. I have them going 1-3 in the month of September. What is your thoughts on their September slate? It's pretty tough. They have a free win against USF, but other than that, they have 3 ranked opponents more than likely. What's your expectations for the first month of the season?
Scheduling Utah at home is a great scheduling opportunity, especially for the Pac-12. They really benefit greatly from this. I think this is a bit, gutsy from Florida to go out and schedule a game like this, considering Utah are considered to be favorites in the Pac-12 with USC. I really like to see that kind of interconference play to kick off the season. That's a great game on September 3rd. I think Utah will win that game. They're slight favorites right now. Then you look at Kentucky. I think Kentucky will be really good this year. Kentucky had a good year last year. I think they're going to build off that. That's a tough game to have back-to-back. They do benefit that both those games are at home. Then, like you said, you get USF, which is a free win. Then at Tennessee. Tennessee's going to be really good this year. Tennessee has a really strong roster, and that's going to be a tough game to play against in Rocky Top. They're going to get up for it. Then they get a nice little break there with Eastern Washington, Missouri, and LSU. Then the schedule gets even tougher with that 3 from October 29th to November 12th. I mean, look at that. Georgia in Jacksonville, at Texas A&M, at home in South Carolina. Brutal slate there.
Yeah, I just have questions about the passing game here. The lack of speed certainly a concern. How will separation be? And I think, third down in conference, they were towards the bottom last season, being able to convert longer distances. Physicality takes a bit of a dip with Pierce gone. Damian Pierce, that is. Early in the season, I'm just not sure if they'll have that balance. I think they will at times, but I'm just not sure how consistent it will be. I think they'll run the ball pretty strong, but through the air, I don't know how it will go. They were also 115th in turnover margin last year. Shouldn't have had as many INTs as they did throwing the ball. They had a lot of issues at quarterback. Whoever it was, they just turned it over a lot. The defense is promising. Lots of work to be done, along with the concerns in the trenches on defense. They do have Gervin Dexter coming back, but I'm not exactly blown away with what they currently have. I think this could easily be an 8 or 9 win team, but we'll see what happens in September. I think they'll certainly decide it. And of course, at home against South Carolina, that could potentially be a win as well. I think it's going to be an 8 or 9 win team, though. I think we'll play a lot of close games, especially in September. Final verdict for me, 6-6, though, but I'm certainly optimistic that they can do more in 2022.
I really like the schedule from Florida. When you look at it from top to bottom, it's very interesting. I like that Florida State's on a Friday this year, on Black Friday. That's a really cool scheduling opportunity. You're going to get a lot of eyes on that game. Traveling to College Station is certainly brutal. And, you play Georgia and Jacksonville, Georgia. That's always a wild card in that neutral site game. Going to interesting to see what that can look like. They definitely get some benefits. LSU, I think that LSU will be weak this year. They have a chance to win that game. But the East is definitely on the rise. There's a lot of teams in the East that normally aren't huge players, like Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, who seem to be back this year, making the East a lot stronger than you'd expect. And it's just going to be a little tough for Florida to find those wins that they normally are guaranteed every year with Kentucky or Tennessee or with South Carolina. It's going to be tough to get them to bowl eligibility. I think they barely get there, but it's going to be tough for sure.
So what's your record prediction?
I'm going to go 6-6 as well. I think they'll squeak in. Maybe they get an extra win in there. I think they could potentially beat. I want to say they might beat Kentucky early in the season. Kentucky might just have that sort of flow yet. They could get 7. They can go 7-5 potentially.
Yeah, I think that there's some potential for this team. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see how this team performs in 2022. That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Nick, appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
See you next time.